Hello, yogis. I hope this video finds you well wherever you are. We are now on the chapter in the Dhammapada about evil, and I was hoping I could make a video yesterday, but I spent a couple of days just kind of meditating on this. And I thought it would maybe be helpful if we could kind of discuss concepts of evil and kind of what they are. This video might be a little longer than my other videos because of that, but there's the Christian tradition of kind of this evil or tempter. You have the 10 Commandments and stuff like that, and we know that stealing and violence are bad. But I thought maybe it might be a little bit useful for us to discuss some of the other categories that could be considered evil. And so the first place is psychological evil, because evil begins in the mind, usually, right? And those psychological evils can come in the forms of delusion, which is just not being able to see reality clearly. And I think most of us have been delusional at some point in our lives, right? We've been in love or in a job that was bad for us, but we couldn't really see it, right? Craving. That's desire that becomes obsession. So any addiction, whether that be to a substance or to a person or an act. So any type of craving. Aversion, which is hatred or resentment, is considered a psychological evil. So if you hate anything, you're super resentful at anything, it's a psychological evil. Egoic corruption, self-centeredness that blinds judgment. And so just being so full of yourself that you are unable to make good judgment calls leads to evil. Moving on, moral evils. And so these are actions that are actually meant and designed to cause harm or inflict injury on others. And some of those could be violence, deceit, so just being dishonest, not being, transparent with people, being cruel, intentionally hurting people and being mean in that way, and just overt oppression, right? Holding people back, not being fair. All of those are moral evils. Negligent evil is caused by a failure to act. And so this evil could be a refusal to care. If you see somebody that's in need of help and you don't care, it's considered an apathetic evil. Cowardice, being called to action and not doing anything, is an evil. And just inaction, not fulfilling your duty when you're supposed to. Then we have structural evil, which is harm which created by systems, which could be corruption. Could also be culture, be ingrained in a whole culture. Economics, and I put collective ignorance. And finally, we have a spiritual evil. So spiritual evil is a distortion of the soul, and that is ignorance of the true nature of the self, being attached to anything, having attachments, having aversions, right? Being scared of things, and ego delusion, right? Same thing, being so full of ourselves that we can't really see like what's really happening in the world. And so I thought that it might be good just to do that before we read this. And now we'll just jump into the text. The Dhammapada on evil. Be quick in doing what's admirable. Restrain your mind from what's evil. When you're slow in making merit, evil delights in the mind. If a person does evil, he shouldn't do it again and again, shouldn't develop a penchant for it. To accumulate evil brings pain. If a person makes merit, he should do it again and again, should develop a penchant for it. To accumulate merit brings ease. Even the evil meet with good fortune, as long as their evil has yet to mature. But when it's matured, that's when they meet with evil. Even the good meet with bad fortune, as long as their good has yet to mature. But when it's matured, that's when they meet with good fortune. Don't be heedless of evil. A water jar fills, even with water falling in very little drops. With evil, even if, bit by bit, habitually, the fool fools himself. The fool fills himself, Don't be heedless of merit. A water jar fills even when water is falling in little drops. With merit, even if, bit by bit, habitually, the enlightened one fills themselves full. Like a merchant with a small but well-laden caravan, a dangerous road, like a person who loves life, a poison one should avoid, evil deeds. If there's no wound on the hand, that hand can hold poison. Poison won't penetrate. Where there's no wound, there's no evil for those who don't do it. Whoever harasses an innocent man, a man pure without blemish, the evil comes right back to the fool like fine dust thrown against the wind. Some are born in the human womb. Evildoers in hell. Those on a good course go to heaven, while those without effluent totally unbound. Not up in the air, nor in the middle of the sea, nor going in a cleft in the mountain. Nowhere on earth is a spot to be found where you could stay and escape your evil deed. Not up in the air, nor in the middle of the sea, nor going in a cleft in the mountains. Nowhere on earth is a spot to be found where you could stay and not succumb to death. And there it ends. So I don't even really know what to say right now, because I want to stay away from certain things, but also the world is crazy, okay? And you have all of these moral pitfalls. And I was watching a show the other day, and it's never before in the history of humanity have you had access to adult content and gambling to the extent that we do now as a society, right? And these are severe moral evils. And, we have these concepts of freedom, and we have these concepts of capitalism and all these different things. And is it right or wrong to make a lot of money? And is it right or wrong to, and there's lots of people that will try to step into these roles and tell you what to do. But it's going to come from inside here, right? One of the reasons I love reading these texts is I want to empower myself, but also others, to not rely on a spiritual leader, to know that what the right thing to do is, right? And it starts off with, if you are not doing good merit, or if you're not producing merit, then you're basically on your way to evil. What does it say? When you're slow in making merit, evil delights in the mind. And so it just seems like it's the human condition that we tend towards either doing good or doing evil, right? And I know in my country, in America, we treat each other pretty bad. I have a little handyman company that I've had for a couple of years, and I pick my clients very carefully because of how I've been treated. People haven't paid me. So many situations that have arisen because of moral failings, where people think they can get over on you, or they have more power than you do in the dynamic, and then all these different games start happening. There's a lot of things I love about Buddhism and Hinduism, but one is that this tells you very clearly that you cannot escape your deeds, good or bad. There's nowhere on earth that you can hide that you're going to escape what you've done. Now, maybe your community is unaware of whatever, maybe I shouldn't use words like you, but the person is unaware, or their community is unaware of whatever they've done. But eventually, karmically, it's going to come out, right? As Martin Luther King said, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it tends towards justice. I think it's really good to identify evil, and more importantly, not external evil, but within ourselves, right? We want to stay away from bad behaviors so we don't start doing those behaviors, right? So if we see somebody that's arrogant and loud and lies and, violent or whatever, like maybe it's probably not a great idea to have that person being in your group, right? In your sangha. Like if they're not trying, then, it's probably good to be separated and be a little discriminatory. The holy people and the debaucherous people probably shouldn't be commingling so much, right? To accumulate merit in your own life is, and I don't mean for the sake of accolade or for the sake of having people love you or know you or whatever. The whole point of life is to live a merit-filled life, to fulfill your duties and your obligations, right? And so, I used to be in the United States Army, and I loved it because, I got to be of absolute service when I lived at the monastery. It was a life of service. Any time in my life that I have gone away from the life of servants model and went and, was driven by money or driven by whatever the other circumstances that it was, I was so unfulfilled. I've had a bank account with tons of money in it and just been lonely and dead inside and sad, and all of those cravings that we mentioned about in the evils earlier, vices start to show up, which take us away from our virtues. Anyway, I hope that you found some value in this. I am really enjoying doing these. The main takeaway from this is that if you know that you have a bad habit, like it said, like a little drip over time will fill up a whole pot. And so you want to address that now. If there's some addiction or something like that, you need to deal with, well, deal with it and start making your way towards getting that evil away from you. If you have any questions or you need anything at all, by all means, leave a comment. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. As always, I hope that you're doing well wherever you are. Namaste.